Hey, welcome to another episode of Dreams Podcast. Um, Very excited today. We're embarking on an adventure that's very, very different for Mr. Mitchell and I. Um, we have Miss Bree Sutton on, who is a licensed mental health therapist, which is it's something that's being talked about a great deal at this day and age, which we didn't get these experiences when we were coming up. So I'm excited to learn today. How you doing, Mr. Mitchell?
Hey man, I'm doing great, Miss Cloven. So thank
Yeah,
you. As Scott
yeah.
stated, thank you all for joining us today on Dreams Podcast. Miss Sutton, I'm looking forward to what you have to offer, what you're willing to share, and as Scott said, learning. Because this
Mhm.
is something, as Scott mentioned, we growing up is be tough, be quiet, take
Mhm.
it, get through it. So in hearing your professional thesis, opinions, and the prognosis, I'm elated to get into that. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad to be here, and specifically for that reason that because of the way that people learn to be in athletics, there's a huge stigma against mental health and getting mental health support. So I'm grateful that you're having me here today.
Absolutely, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone in the U.S. I'm here in Canada. It's in October, so it's a little weird. I tell you what, there's nothing like Thanksgiving in the United States, man. I mean, football all day, family, surrounded by love, huh? Dang.
It's something
I was
else.
there last. I know. I promised myself I wouldn't miss it. I was there last year, and I got to make sure I'm there in the U.S. moving forward for Thanksgiving because it's an unbelievable experience. So,
Absolutely.
um, but yeah, but Bree, you know what? What I would like to do first is just kind of, you can introduce yourself to the world and, um, let us know how did you kind of get into this profession and what led you to accomplishing all the things you've accomplished thus far.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm in Washington State, and I've got a small group practice in Spokane. We can practice throughout the whole state though via telehealth. So we've got a pretty wide range of folks that we can support. Uh, with counseling in general, I think when you ask a 6-year old, what do you want to do when you grow up? And they're like, I want to be an astronaut. I was saying I want to be a counselor. So I just knew from a very early age that's what I wanted to do. And I don't know why. My best friend's dad was a therapist and a professor at a university, and I thought that was the coolest thing. So yeah, I can't explain it. It's just always what I wanted to do. Um, but working with athletes specifically was something that came a little bit later. So sports have always been a big part of my life. I've really consistently been in some sort of athletic community. Whether like early on I was playing volleyball, then I got injured, so then I started coaching volleyball, and then uh, I graduated with my undergrad from the University of Minnesota, and then after that, I went to San Diego to go to school for massage therapy. I really thought that if I was going to, I didn't see the brain and the body as really two separate things. And I thought if I was going to go be a counselor and work on people's brains, that I wanted a really strong foundation and understanding of the whole body. So I took kind of a different route than most counselors do. And so I did body work for a few years, actually through grad school. Um, and then by that time, I had gotten really into running. I was doing a lot of like half marathons and Ragnar relay races and things. And so I was in the community in that way. And then now my kids are in sports. And so I've got lots of different sports with them. So this athletes have always been near and dear to my heart. And so when I had to choose who I wanted to serve as a therapist, this was just a really obvious community for me. Um, and you kind of said this earlier too, but athletes are a very underserved population in mental health. and not because they don't need it, but because I don't think that therapists necessarily see athletes as having unique therapeutic needs. And so they kind of treat them like the general public, but it's a very different type of work that I do with my athletes than it is with, somebody who comes in for a depression or generalized anxiety or something.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that, like the difference between, when you're with an athlete versus here again, a person from the general public versus an athlete?
Yeah, so it depends sometimes on the need, right? If somebody comes in and they're an athlete, it might have nothing to do with what they want to accomplish in counseling. But if they are coming in, being an athlete is uh, one of the identities that you come into counseling with. And oftentimes, especially if you've grown up as an athlete, if you've gone through college, you've gone through all of the stressors of like getting into a college, choosing where you want to play, then if you're on scholarship, trying to play well enough that you keep your scholarship, and injuries, and you're doing all of these things while also still being a student and still being a son or daughter or partner or whatever. So it's a layer of life stressors that non-athletes just don't have to deal with. They don't experience that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, you know, Jackie and I didn't think about it probably. And I can speak for myself, and I'm probably Jackie as well. We didn't think about what we were going through when we were in the midst of it. I mean, just being in college, taking a full workload of courses, trying to graduate, and then at the same time waking up for 5 to 6 a.m. workouts, and then coming back, practicing after you get out of after you're done with class all day. The average student could just go take a nap. We go right to class. I'm sorry, we go right to the facility and get to practice. Film study before that, so after all that, after you eat, we have study hall. So it's a totally different ball game. And I know, and I'll let Jackie chime in. And I know for me, I was a late bloomer, and so my career was kind of I would like this, and I would have anxiety when I would get on a field. And I think until I would get comfortable, but then there would be points in the game or in certain moments where you would get these. I would feel like just very anxious, and it's not normal, and I know that now. And I wish I would have had someone like yourself to go and talk to, and it probably would have made me a better player for sure. But Jackie, talk about kind of your mental experiences, I guess, being an athlete.
I can attest to that. I think, but for me, you just didn't know what it was. My environment, it starts when I was little, because my environment where I grew up at, we played throw up tackle, so you're playing throw up tackle. And I would say for me in the beginning, I didn't know what fear was. I didn't fear anything because we were so young, playing against older kids, whether it be football, basketball, whether you were just outside racing. But as I got older, the pressures of it, I didn't understand it. I just dealt with it. And so how I dealt with it, I would take a nap before the game. Anything that I was playing before, like I would take a nap, and many people didn't realize that. But Scott, if you remember, we was in college. I'm taking a nap. I literally would go to sleep in the locker room, Bree, and I would just go over there and I would just shut down completely. Then when I woke up, I was ready. It was like I had whatever it was. That was my process. That was my way of doing it. I really didn't get nervous a lot because I had already done it here, if that makes sense. And my life journeys had prepared me for so much that I didn't even realize it. So I would say to your point, Scott, I knew I was dealing with things. I didn't talk about it, just like many people didn't. You deal with it. You know, you're told to be, hey, you're tough. You're a football player. Don't cry. You can't complain. You just get through it. And to your point, also, Scott, I don't know if I could have just been a regular student because for so many years we've been doing this. You see what I'm saying? So you become a creature by habit. And so
Yeah.
being a regular student, I probably would have, I'm bored. I don't have nothing to do. Like I'm just in class. Like I don't get to
Yeah.
play. So I don't know if I could have done that. So I think
Yeah.
it's what's meant for us is meant for us. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah. No, yeah, that would be strange, huh, to make that adjustment. Just think about that, how some guys are playing in college, especially such a big workload, and then you're playing, and then you either get kicked off the team or whatever the case may be, or you leave,
Right.
stop playing, and now that's a dramatic difference, and it's kind of like our podcast, Locker Room to Reality. You
Yep.
know, that definitely would be a tough adjustment. I never thought about that actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if I
yeah,
could imagine because your day is kind of structured. Your whole
yeah,
day is structured as an athlete. You see
yeah.
what I'm saying? So that's the
Hmm.
transition, like we speak
Hmm.
about. And so I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure Bree will touch on you're meaning from 6 in the morning to pretty
Hmm.
much 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Your day is structured for you.
Hmm.
Where
Yeah,
if you're a regular student, you're waking up, you're going to class, you're going to the cab, hey, you're kicking it. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? So it is different.
It's
So,
different.
and that's
Yeah,
actually an interesting, this is jumping around a little bit, but that point of, it's not just in college where your life as an athlete is structured, right? That it starts very early on where like someone's telling you where to be at practices, at games, how you're supposed to train, how you're supposed to eat, right? All of that stuff is structured. And one of the things I've found with um, the group of people who are retired, right? A lot of athletes will retire in their 30s or 40s, and you have a whole life after that, right? And
hmm,
so sometimes people will go into corporate America or something, and uh, that's one of the most difficult transitions is that going from being highly structured and and then all of a sudden you're in this world where you're kind of more autonomous. You have to navigate that and figure it out on your own. And there's also an aspect of we have this gauge, right, that tells us how we're doing, whether it's in life or in your sport. And when you're an athlete, you're growing up with somebody else constantly telling you how you're doing. Like you know how well you're playing by how much playtime you're getting, if how your practice, how your fans are interacting with you, how the crowd is with you, coaches, parents, everybody's telling you how you're doing. And so then when you get to that other place in life, the retirement or post athlete world, nobody's telling you that anymore, right? You get like one annual review to guide you, for you to know how what your status is, and that's
hmm.
really really tough on a lot of people. So for that group, that's a lot of the work with those folks that I've done is just like building skills for how to have that gauge be a little bit more internal instead of always waiting for someone else to tell you how you're doing.
Yeah. Man, this is awesome. I'm just like I never looked at it like that. How here again, like your whole life is structured, right? Your whole life as an athlete, and now you have to go out into the real world, and you've never done that. And yeah, this is a and Bree, don't send us an invoice after this. This is a
Yeah.
this is we're getting a therapy session here. Yeah, no man,
No
and that's
diagnosis and treatment plans, so we're good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it is. It's like I'm a little bit speechless. Like just listening, was listening to you there, and yeah, that it's a. I always talk about that. It's a tough adjustment, and
Hmm.
I think Jackie could attest to this. It's just the way we grew up in certain environments. You're just prepared for anything, so you deal with it, right? And you're here again. you're you're told to be tough. If you show weakness, you get picked on, right? And so I think that's the cool thing now is like it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to express yourself as a man now. I mean, even in when you even into relationships, it was like you wanted to be the tough guy. You couldn't tell a woman I love you. Now I'm okay with telling my buddy I love you. You see what I'm saying? Versus being in certain environments where that's just not okay. And so it's just awesome that now people like you are helping athletes make those adjustments. But I'll turn it over to Jackie and he can fire off a couple questions for you.
Well, thank you, Bree. Like Scott mentioned, this is going to be a fascinating journey for me because I'm always in my head. Like always, I'm always, whether it's thinking of a business idea, trying to simulate something, trying to finish something, and it's like it's crazy now. This just came to me, so I don't want y'all to think otherwise, but we try so hard to fix the problem, not even knowing what the problem is as athletes. You see what I'm saying? So before we even get out to practice, like okay, I'm gonna work on this. I'm gonna work on this. We think about the play we didn't have. We think about the play we didn't make. And the crazy thing about it is like this is great because, as you said, we spoke a little bit off camera, and we spoke about a particular type of therapy. And so my question is, can you speak about the brain spotting versus talk therapy and the differentiation and how it's coming into the new profession of counseling?
Yeah, and yes, and what you were talking about there, athletes tend to be high achievers and perfectionists. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And I think a lot of athletes would understand very closely what you're talking about with that always being in your head. Traditional talk therapy is what most people think of when they think of counseling, or it's typically what is portrayed in, movies and TV shows and things where you're just sitting in the room talking to your therapist, and that can be very effective. But it only addresses, or talk therapy can only access the frontal lobe of our brain. So the front part of our brain is where language is. It's where our conscious thought is. And so when we use talk therapy, we're only addressing things that you are consciously aware of and can verbalize. So brain spotting is a tool that actually accesses the deep brain. So like if you were to go straight down in the center of your head into your brain, like the deep inside part, that's what brain spotting can access. So that's the unconscious brain, the unconscious thoughts. When I use the word trauma, it is what a trauma is a strong negative experience. So that could be anything, right? And we, just as humans, have traumas throughout our life, and our brain holds these things as a network. So when one trauma happens, it's not an isolated thing. It fires up all of our other traumas. And so you might not remember something that happened when you were young, but then break your ankle or something happens, and all of a sudden your brain associates that with the one time you fell off the playground in elementary school or something. And so that is not something that we're going to work through by talking about it. So brain spotting, the process of brain spotting is that we'd have a specific thing that we'd already talked about. There's a lot of intake paperwork and things that goes along with me figuring out what is the thing that we're going to work on to best help someone. And then, let's just say it's an injury. So I would have you think about the injury, and I want you to get a little bit activated, a little bit frustrated or emotional about that injury. And then I have a pointer that I use to either have you find the brain spot, which is an eye position, associated with that injury. And I, would walk my clients through this whole thing. And then basically in your visual area, there would be one position where you would put your eyes on that position and you would be like, ooh, I really felt that more intensely. Like you would actually have an intense feeling. And then I would say, okay, just hold on that spot. And then you can either sit in silence and just let your brain do the processing, or some people will talk through whatever's happening for them while we are processing that injury. Does that, I don't, from a therapist perspective, I don't know all the time if the way that I describe it lands. So if that was not clear, let me know.
No, I think it was. I mean, because here again, it makes sense. It's, even when you get away from the athletic standpoint, things that happen in your childhood reflects, what you do later on in life in a lot of situations. That's why they talk about, I think what's important, which I never knew this, when you're dating someone, if you meet someone, I think it's very important to, hey, where'd you grow up at? How did you grow up? Not that they're going to give you all the goods, but I think as things progress, I think finding out about a person's childhood is very, very important, because now you're going to know how they're going to react, why they do certain things. You see what I'm saying? And so when you go back to this aspect, if you had an injury, it could have been years ago, and in certain movements, you think about it. Like I had a shoulder injury in 2005, and then even now playing flag football, in certain situations, somebody will run into me and hit, and it'll tingle, and my brain goes right back to that play when it happened.
Yes.
Right. So
exactly.
It definitely makes sense.
And our so we hold memories physically also, and so your part of the goal in working with athletes and getting through, we could brain spot that injury or something, right? So that, because what's happening is that something's happening to your body that is reminding you of that injury, so that you cannot, it's like we do this muscle protecting. Our body doesn't want us, our brain and our body don't want us to get hurt again. So you might notice a little, you protect it, right? Your muscles tense up around that injury. But part of what brain spotting does is it helps that to release, so that you're not doing the muscle guarding, right? Because that impacts the way that you play, right? It's have you heard of, when a pitcher in baseball gets the yips? Have you heard that term?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So usually it kind of comes out of nowhere, but what it is a build up of smaller problems or smaller traumas along the way, and then the arm or whatever's happening gets stuck in not being able to perform based on your training and your physical ability, because the brain is getting in the way. So brain spotting is really effective for that, and there's been studies on it that brain spotting can help people get past the yips, so that they're going back to playing and performing based on all of that intense training that they've done to get where they're at.
Yeah, it's and I'm gonna this is this is awesome. I'm gonna just tell a quick story and then ask a question and then turn it back over to Jackie. Jackie involves this story I'm about to tell. And so he can attest to this. He's like, it's not G14 classified. Hey, so, all right, it's funny. So I was in Seattle a few weeks back at a Seahawks 49ers game. I run into the general manager, John Snyder, at the Seattle Seahawks, who gave me my first NFL contract in 2000. First thing he says, and you'll know where I'm going with this. First thing he says, because he's a scout, he's a general manager, but he's a scout at heart. He's like, hey, Scott Coleman. He comes up, gives me a big hug, and the first thing he says is, this guy has some great hands. It's the first thing he says, right? So Jackie knows this. Like, I think in college, I didn't drop one football. I've never dropped footballs. I mean, my hands are huge. Number one, but it was just something I really prided myself on, and so it never happened to me. It was like I just did it. I caught everything. So fast forward, 2005, I'm playing in the CFL for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Jackie's playing for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So we're playing against each other. And so, funny thing in this game too, we both had kill shots on each other. I was coming across the middle, and the ball was a little bit low. I still should have caught it, but I dropped it, and he was covered. Jackie said, "Boy, you lucky I love you. I could have killed you." He said, "Well, I would have killed you." So a few series later, though, when our running back got out in the open, and I was downfield, and I came back. I could have, because back then you could do. Now you can't do that.
Yeah,
back then you could just level. I could level. And I just tapped. I was like, "Ooh, I could have
got you."
But so we're in the game. You know, it was playing. It was bad weather. I remember it like yesterday. It was bad weather game. They had to actually postpone it. And so I'm running what you call a post corner route. And so I waggle down, I motion down, and I run a great route. And in the huddle, I tell our quarterback, who was a guy named Kevin Glenn at the time, I was like, man, if we get man to man, just put it up. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna catch it. Don't worry about it. And so anyway, I kill it. I come wide open, and so the ball, he throws the ball, and when he let the ball, and here again it was very windy, so it was like shifting. And when I saw the ball, like, I was relaxed, but it was shifting so much, and I was like, oh God. And this ball, I'm like, it went right through. I just dropped it. Never happened to me before in my life. It was like a boxer who'd never been knocked down. Like, what just happened?
Wide open.
Yeah, wide open.
Yeah,
and what he tells me? Jackie was like, he's on the other team. He's like, what the F you doing? Man, get the damn ball.
I was like, man, you gonna get cut, man. I was like, you trying to get cut.
And I just looked at her, I put my hand down, I was like, damn, dude. Anyway, I went on that game. I remember making some really good plays. Thank God, really, after that. But I got the yips. All week in practice, I was like, when they threw the ball to me, I was no longer catching with my big hands. I was catching with my body. I was nervous.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, catch it. And the next game, first ball they threw to me, I was just scared. I was scared. Like, I was literally scared. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the greatest ball, but I should have caught it. And it got pulled out the game. And yeah, that was it was an experience for me. I eventually came out of it, and my way of dealing with it was like, if you drop a ball, you have to move on to the next play. And so I actually just act like I didn't care. Whenever it was rare I dropped the ball, but the ones when it did happen again, I was just like, and the coach was like, catch the ball. I was like, man, get out of my face. Yeah, you know what I mean? I was just moving. That's how I dealt with it, because that one play really affected me. I was damaged.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so,
and athletes are very resilient, right? You figure out, like Jackie, you talked about this, you find ways to adapt, right? So that you found a workaround basically to have a way to not like continue to let that incident inform how you play. And that's fine. Like, that's a good way to do it. Brain spotting is also something that would help you to not perform based on that trauma where you
Yeah.
missed your first catch, right? So there's different ways to do it. It's not that brain spotting or therapy are the only ways that athletes can perform at their best. It's a way that is, it gets past so that you don't have to be doing all of those adaptations, because that's one, right? But if you think about all the things that have happened throughout your career, that's a whole lot of adaptations that you're having to work through in order to play well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I'm gonna ask. I had a question for you, and then here again, and then we'll get Jackie to chime in. Talk about like repeated concussions, and I've had a few concussions myself. I think about 3. And talk about the work you've done with athletes, in that realm, and kind of what kind of work have you done with them to help correct things?
Yeah. And I will say I'm not a doctor, not a medical doctor. So the work that I do is based on what I read and the research that I read about what is the current understanding of concussion. And it's so new that things will change over time. But for right now, what we know is that when somebody has a concussion, ideally, you would let your brain fully heal before training again. And the concussion is basically just it's diagnosed based on a list of symptoms and problems that somebody has after they get hit. And oftentimes people get put back in. Either they start training too soon or they get put back in, and then your brain has not fully healed before you're putting it in danger again. And so when the concussion is one thing, but then there's also this research showing that repeated subconcussive hits are incredibly damaging as well. And this is not typically anything that shows up like right today in the here and now, but it's more like people start having cognitive problems down the road, or memory problems, or mood changes that's happening a little bit later in life. But they've seen this a lot with like boxers, or in soccer when people are heading the ball all the time, or any sports where there is like people are running into each other. And so the things like brain spotting can help your brain process and heal quicker. And so it's a tool that definitely can be used to help your brain heal from subconcussive hits or concussion. And I've had some interesting, I can't go into a lot of detail because I can't talk about my clients, but the situations where I've worked with concussion, the way that I've seen progress is that their symptoms are reduced a lot faster. So they're getting back the cognitive functioning. When you get a concussion and you've got that brain fog and you're like kind of nauseous all the time. And so those types of symptoms can be reduced or healed quicker when we do things like brain spotting. I had one person who the injury that caused the concussion, anytime that she was in a position that was similar to that injury, she would just black out, like fully just completely black out, which was probably a trauma response from her brain. But as we did brain spotting, she could do that action again and not black out. She could just fully do her skill. And so because all of our brains are so different, there's not like when we do this is exactly what happens. It's different for everyone. But I think the speed of healing is one of the biggest benefits to brain spotting.
Wow. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell. I'll let you take over.
I'm just, I take a lot of notes, man. So I appreciate the proper verbiage and the narrative, because I have my own, and I want to share with Bree. But to your point, Scott, like I do remember that. I remember it, and I did say that. I was like, "Man, catch the ball! What you doing? You trying to get cut?"
Yeah.
But in doing that, it's I would always call it time capsules. So to hear it means adaptations, I'll start using that verbiage because I would always wonder, and everyone has someone like this, everyone has someone that they know, whether it be friend, colleagues, people in passing, they stay in that trauma adaptation no matter what. It's like, man, you remember this and this happened and you remember this, and I just be like, man, that happened like 15, 12 years ago. And then I let them have it because I'm like, I'm not there anymore. I've processed that, and whatever's happened, we've moved on. And the I'm glad I know now how to identify it properly because, as a I received my certification as being a life coach. So those are things that I pay attention to, as far as using proper verbiage, but also really trying to understand where a person is at. Because not knowing proper terms, not knowing the verbiage, the traumas, the brain spottings, the adaptations, the subconcussions, like you just think, if I'm being honest, something wrong with them. Like get out of like what you doing, man? Like seriously, like what are you talking about? This happened 20 years ago. Well, man, you remember this? And it's just like that's all they want to speak about. Nothing has happened since then. Nothing has happened after that, and so that's baffling to me. But thank you for sharing that. And as far as the questioning, it's more so about talk about what can happen if you return to action too soon, because now you sharing the things that you have shared, whether it be concussion, whether it's the adaptations of the trauma, like you said, the yips. I never knew, to your professional verbiage, what I was actually doing, because I would always separate my thoughts and my body. Like that's what's crazy. Like I'm being completely honest, Scott. Like when I would be like, if something happened in the game, like I would literally be like, and then it's gone. Like whatever happened, I'm like, I'm on to the next play. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I would use that time, like you said, we'll go watch film, and then I would make my corrections. Now, I can truly say one of the things that I prided myself on, if somebody done something to me the one time, they don't get a second time to do it to me. And I really took pride in it because I'm just like, oh, Scott knows that. Scott beat me one time, and I'm not afraid to tell this story. Scott pulled a move on me, and it was a great move. I'm thinking, I got him. I'm trying to jam him. He grabs me and he pulls me through. And when he pulled me through, I couldn't defend anything. I was in a helpless situation. I didn't like that moment. But to your point, I still remembered it like it just happened. And we talked about it. And it's like he stated, I didn't get the yips, but I learned to adapt to do something else to somebody like Scott, because I know Scott is fast. I know he's physical. He's going to be. He don't mind contact. So to my question, you know, if and I'll react so you don't have a chance. But what talk about what can happen if you return to action too soon, short term and long term.
Yeah, so and again, this is different for everybody, but typically we don't want to return to action because your brain hasn't fully had the opportunity to heal. Our bodies are brilliant and they can heal themselves in a lot of ways, but we need to give it the time and the space to do that. So, ideally, all of the list of symptoms would be gone, and you'd be working with a medical professional to say like when it's okay to go back. But if you go back too soon, the symptoms can continue. So the like brain fogginess might remain, the like getting dizzy every now and again, that might remain, right? There's things where if your brain's not allowed to heal, it's gonna just keep like the symptoms might remain, right?
Yeah.
the biggest scariest danger of continuing to have to play when you have a concussion is the long-term effects of something like chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, which has been a big topic, I think, in the football world recently. And that the danger of that is all of the horrific things that we've seen with people after. And that is something that doesn't get diagnosed until you're dead, and they take slices of your brain, put them under a microscope, and see that your brain is like eating itself from the inside out. And that is like memory loss, mood changes, like wild mood changes, where people will say, like, I don't even recognize who this person is. They were never like that before. And that is stuff that happens a little bit further down the road. And that tends, from what I've read, that tends to be the people who play and play and play and play and play without giving their brains time to rest after concussion.
Yeah, that I think, and I said this before, but I think it should be mandatory that, whether, especially, I'm going to say professional athletes, when they're done playing, mandatory therapy in that regard, because for that reason alone, among other things, we talked about adjusting, to the real world and things of that nature. But I remember I was playing in the XFL in 2001, and we're in practice, and I was playing for the team called Orlando Rage. And quarterback throws the ball, I go to make a low catch. And Jack, you remember Ricky Bell?
Yeah.
Played up here.
Mm-hmm.
Passed away, actually.
Yeah,
Committed suicide. Yeah, really good player. He was driving down his knee. He kneed me in the back of the head. So imagine the force, right? And so that was my second concussion. So I knew immediately. So because I got up and I felt foggy, and I went to the sideline, and I felt nauseous, like I was about to puke. And so I knew it was a concussion.
Mm-hmm.
So they take me to the hospital, and they want to do they would put me under this machine. I'm assuming it was maybe a CT scan. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And they wanted me to, I remember they wanted me to fill out some paperwork. I could barely stand up. I was like, I can't stop puking. I'm like, I can't. Anyway, but long story short, this is on Tuesday. I played on Saturday. Well, here again, because at that time, no one was talking about it. Right? No one was talking about it. And they were just like, so they just held me out of practice. I didn't practice the rest of the week. And I played on Saturday. And I just remember every time I would collide with someone, I would catch a pass or get tackled, it was weird. As the first time I would see like doubles and triples. Mm-hmm. And and so I, of course, to try to avoid it, if I caught a ball, I just try to, run and get out of harm's way, get out of bounds, or get down. But yeah, I mean, which is crazy that somebody, because this was, looking back at it now, like this wasn't a mild, it was like a serious concussion.
Yeah.
Like I was messed up. Like I should have been out for probably a month maybe. Because but so if y'all see me,
suck it up.
If y'all see, yeah, that's what they would tell you. So later on in life, y'all see me, y'all hear about me robbing a bank or doing some crazy stuff.
You'll know why.
Oh my gosh. Man. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's crazy. They threw me back out there to the wolves.
To the wolves, man. That's it.
And
that's that's crazy you say that, because that's the profession that we in. It really, really is. And to your point, I'll share a quick story with you. I'm playing in Saskatchewan. We're playing against Edmonton. That's when John Avery. And John Avery, he would cut you. And so, he was a little shorter than I was, but he was very, very tough. So he cut me. He tried to cut me early, and I said, I'm going to get him back, man. And it was a blitz. I came in, and John Avery stood straight up and hit me right up under my chin. I literally folded straight down. I fell straight down, like collapse, boom. So I come through, I hit the ground. Like you, I don't know where I'm at. I rephrase that. I knew where I was. So they take you off to the sideline. I told him, I said, hey man, I think I got a concussion. So we went in, and it was right before the half. I'll never forget it. So we go in before the half, and I'm sitting on the bench just like, just. So they asked me, I said, listen. I told my team, I said, when they asked me what day it is, I said, stand over there and give me the number. Like, I didn't know nothing. I knew where I was. I knew what city I was in, who was playing. I finished the entire second half not knowing the plays. And it's a true story. I never forget. You remember Eddie Davis?
Yeah.
So I told ED, we called him. I said, ED, I said, just tell me where to go. I said, just tell me where to go. And I finished the game playing like that because it was us going to the playoffs trying to get to the Grey Cup championship. So I'm like, if I'm not out here, we don't win. And we won, but I jeopardized. I took one for the team on that one. So I told him to
Bree, don't let him say he was trying to get that money.
I'm trying to get that money, man. That playoffs, man. I'm trying to get that money, man. Trying to get that check.
Yep.
So
that's part of the challenge, though, isn't it? That look at what you risk when you step back to let your brain heal, right? Are you going to get to play again? Are you going to lose money? Are you losing a contract? Are you letting your team down? Right? Like
speaks to the pressures you spoke about.
Yes, it does. And that not everybody is going to come to the sidelines and be like, I think I have a concussion. They might just tough it out and play anyway because of all of those reasons. So that's a really, really hard position for athletes to be in. And it's not an easy call to make, to say that you are sick and have to be out.
No, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, you can't, like they say, we got an old saying, Bree, in the sports world, you can't make the club in the tub.
Can't do it.
So,
there you go.
And those things stick with you, right? And you do what you have to do, which is not always the right thing. But switching gears, something I kind of want to touch on. Like, do you think it'd be beneficiary for a kid coming from high school to college, and then also for an athlete making that jump from college to the professional ranks? Because there's a lot of pressures that come with that. You know, a kid comes from high school and he's a highly touted athlete. He signs with a Power 5 school. Now, especially this day and age with the NIL deals, the marketing deals, these kids are getting the pressures that comes with. And here again, it could be a number of things. Our kid can be, he was the man. Now he has to start all over. I got to go prove a lot of anxieties. Like, tell me, what are your thoughts on that, and how would you work with an athlete who's making that transition?
Yeah, it's a huge time that it's beneficial to have counseling, and for so many reasons. We actually, from the time that we're born, our brain has these like developmental bursts, which typically are like when you start walking and talking and things, and then adolescence and all those. Then the final burst happens in like early to mid 20s, which is right as that transition into college is happening. A lot of people sail right through that with no problems, and some people though have depression shows up then, anxiety shows up then, even some like severe mental health problems like schizophrenia or things like that. And if people are experiencing that, but they don't really know what's going on or they don't get help for it, it can be like a real slippery slope into a dangerous space for people. Also, the pressures that athletes have when they go from high school to college is wild. Like we talked about them getting scholarships or these deals that they're getting. And in order to maintain those things, you have to be performing. Right. And so if somebody has like a slump or they get the yips or something happens, that is, again, it's just like a constant downhill slide because performance is everything. There's also like eating disorders show up in that time. Like people have to look a certain way. They have to act a certain way. There's like suicidal thoughts come up during that time. And sometimes it's that the pressure is so intense, the only out feels like suicide. So uh, that that is a lot for that age group, and they're also navigating this for usually the first time without parental help or high school coaches or whatever, right? Everything is brand new. Also, so I used to work at a university counseling center, and one of the biggest problems is that the counseling center is open during like 9 to 5 hours, right? So that's when athletes are in school and training and eating dinner, right? That the availability of services does not fit for an athlete's schedule. And so, yeah, I mean, if it were up to me, every college athlete would be in counseling
Yeah.
just to simply
Yeah.
help with that transition. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's huge.
I think the way I put it, I always use it kind of in layman's terms. I tell someone, I was like if, when it comes to counseling, and some people are like, well, I don't need counseling. I was like, okay, you work out every day because you want to perform and look a certain way. Because if you don't do those things, you won't perform a certain way or look a certain way. You're not going to wait till you get 300 pounds, and then all of a sudden, now I need help. How much harder it's going to be. And so I think just to kind of build on what you already have and maintain the just the mental awareness, what you have going on. I think it's very, very important that athletes who even think they don't need it should definitely partake in it. Even as I think even as humans right here. I mean, I'm not saying as humans, just normal people. If you're not athletes, you're starting to see it more and more. You're starting to see more celebrities openly talk about it, how much it's helped them. And I think that's the stigma. It's like so many. Like I wanted my daughter. She does gymnastics. She's 14, and I wanted her to get some counseling. I don't need counseling. I don't need right. And so it's and that's the thing is because and she grew up in the suburbs. So I don't know where she get that from, but right. But they just here again. They just don't. People. That's the stigma I would like to see go away. That it's like if you do counseling, something's wrong with you, or it's you don't need it.
But to add to that, Scott, I do believe it's what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And if you think about, one of the analogies that I use is one of my former coaches taught me this. He says like a blind dog in a meat house. You see what I'm saying? The dog, he smelling meat. He probably run into it, but hell, he don't know how to get to it and eat it.
Yeah.
And so then in a lot of our environments, we are forced, and it's forged within us, on us, and it's something that you do every day, and you become a creature by habit, as we said. So to your daughter's defense, like you said, yes, she grew up in the suburbs, but she also had a parent from Canada. She also had a parent from the States. She also had a different side of understanding from your side. Your understanding, her mom's understanding. So I would just say to Bree's point, just meet her where she's at. Meet her where she's at. When time comes, I think she'll be able to accept it because now she'll see for herself some of those inconclusive things that she really can't figure out, really don't have an answer to, and I remember when you shared with me being a gymnast, you said it was something that she messed up on one event. That's her best event.
Oh.
And you said, you was like, what happened? And she couldn't explain it. You see what I'm saying? You was like, and you was like, well, this is your best event, So it could have been in that moment where these things that we're learning right now, that could have been like, all right, babe, all right, let's go back to this moment. Did you feel the turn? Did you feel the shift of the weight? How'd you feel coming around the bar? Whatever it could have been. You know what I'm saying? But it's things like that where I appreciate this talk because me hearing it, I'm trying to find ways to be implemented into what I do daily. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, she'll get anxiety before competitions. I think the one you're referring to, She was in the Western Canadian Western Championships,
Yes.
and
Yes.
she's killing it. Like she had finished bars, which was her best. She did bars, beam, and vault and floor are her. I would say her weaker events because she's so tall,
Right.
right? And so she's still good at them, but so she has to. But she always scores so high in on bars and beam. If she does that, she gives herself an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So she's up by like a landslide, and now she's finishing up on floor. She's doing well, killing it. Her last line, and then she was supposed to do a double twist, but in the judges, you tell them what you're going to do before you do it,
Yeah.
and she actually went blank and did the wrong flip and
Yep.
flew out of bounds and dropped all the way down to fourth. I was like, you have got to be, and as a parent, I'm like, oh, and that's where I think counseling would help her to avoid situations like that.
But you as well. But you as well.
Mhm.
So, because
Yes.
it's like not putting you on the spot. It's like a moment you can go to your child and be like, baby, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Let's focus right here. Let's get out of this space. Let's move over here.
Hmm.
And I know
Yep.
you did that because I know you told me you
Yep.
talked to her. It's like, hey, don't worry
Mm-hmm.
about it. It's all right. Just be better next time. And
Yep.
but when I hear and see those things, that's why I said I try to find an instant way to be implemented into what I'm
Hmm.
doing
Hmm.
because I know it's going to help and it's going to help me be better. So that's all I was
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Before Jackie wraps it up for us with his last question, Bree, I think first and foremost, yeah, we definitely. I just want to thank you for coming on. This is going to really help a lot of people because I think these are things that a lot of people don't talk about.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But also something we kind of talked about. I asked you off camera is like I know you worked for a number of companies when you're up and coming, and now over the last few years you started your own practice. Talk
Hmm.
about that experience, what that was like stepping on your own and doing your own thing.
Yeah, I have worked in several different mental health settings, like inpatient facilities with mandated youth that have to be there, outpatient. I've worked in different groups and clinics. I worked at a university. And I really think that it gave me a really wide variety of work with different types of mental health problems and different types of people. So I wouldn't go back and change anything. And even some of the bad experiences or the places I've worked that were just horrible, I learned something from it and I became a better therapist. And in fact, some of those situations helped me to feel more confident and independent in doing this work. Um, and so then, let's see, around 2020, I think it was right around the beginning of the pandemic, is when I decided this is a great time to start a business.
Yeah.
I just decided, I mean, honestly, I was going through a divorce at the time. I had 3 kids at home and I needed to make more money. So
Mm.
I thought, like, I'll just see if I can build up some clients, private clients. And I like it boomed. The clients were just there all of a sudden. And I think part of it was just the stress of the pandemic. Everyone was worried. No one knew what was happening. Um, and then, so from there, I was able to grow quickly enough that I quit working at the university and just went full time private practice. And then I got, I, I was in touch with somebody at Gonzaga about bringing on interns. And so I took on clinical interns from there. And then the practice just kind of grew from there. So it's happened really quickly, and it's just kind of taken on a mind of its own, I think, um, and grown. But it's really exciting. There's a lot of good things happening over here.
Yeah. So
Congratulations.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah, I echo that. Congrats. And so just for you to have the courage to do that, right? Because a lot of times it's not an easy feat. to step out on your own, right?
Mm,
Because it's ingrained in us to go work for people, to go work for a company, right?
right.
It is what it is. We've been taught that our whole lives. It goes back to, that's another sort of kind of trauma, so to speak. We've
Yeah,
been
it is.
taught that to right, go to school, get a good job, and that's what you do.
Well, it's
And
safe, right? That's the
it's
safe
safe,
route.
100%. It's
You got
safe.
to be a
You're
risk
not,
taker to go out on your
yeah,
own.
yeah. Don't jump off the roof, just step off this step, right? And that's what you did, right? You jumped off the mountain. And
Mm,
so we applaud you for that. That's
thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah. I guess like what, were there any, I guess, were there any reserves at all when you thought about doing it?
Yeah, I was
Uh,
terrified. I'd been thinking about it for a while, and I think sometimes necessity is where this stuff comes in. I had three kids to support. I needed to figure this out, and
yeah.
the so it was a little bit of a terrifying move, and but also I just figured it out, and I also thought like the worst case scenario is that it doesn't work and I go back to the university. I had really good and
Hmm.
still do have really great relationships with the people there, and some of them are friends, so I knew I could walk back in there if I needed to. And so there was a risk of starting the practice, but I had something to fall back on. So I think that was definitely
Hmm.
helpful.
Yep. Like before I let Jackie wrap it up for this final question, it's like one of my favorite motivational speakers, Eric Thomas, said you can always go back to average. You got a whole bunch of people waiting on you. Eric, you can always go back to
Yeah,
average. But you only,
exactly.
yeah, right. So why not shoot for phenomenal?
Yeah,
Right. So
that's
yeah,
right.
no, definitely that's awesome. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll let Jackie go ahead and finish it
Oh,
up for us with his final question.
well, no, man. I've enjoyed the talk, Bree, and thank you for your transparency and professionalism, but also your professional critiques and understanding of, the mental aspect of sports. But I kind of feel like I know the answer to this because of what she said to us earlier. Scott said
Mhm.
she wanted to be a, therapist since she was 6. So
Mm,
I would just say, Bree, for you, being where you are now, and you were to go back to the 21-year-old you,
Mm.
what advice would you have for her in being where you are now, what you've been through, as you just spoke about, 3 kids, divorce, and just looking in that rearview mirror at 21, what do you tell that Bree?
Oof. A lot of things. Um, uh, the first thing that comes to my mind is you are going to be okay. Your things are going to work out and you will be fine. Um, this is it's been a bumpy journey. Like this hasn't been easy. And so I think I would let her know that. I would also tell her to, instead of just getting my master's, to just go ahead and get my full PhD, um, because now if I want to pursue that part of education, I got to wait till my kids are grown. So if I had just done it all at once, that would have been great. But also like I'm in a really good position, and I think that all the experiences that, all the experiences we have is what gets us to where we are now. So I don't know that I would change anything, but I would tell myself, you're going to be fine. Just keep chugging along.
Well, yeah, I think that's important. I really think that's important because, as you stated, had you not gone through the things you went through, you wouldn't be where you are today. And
Mm-hmm.
who's to say you have your kids? Who's to say any of the things that you've accomplished now? So I
Yeah.
totally gravitate what you're saying, and just I just want to say thank you. Like I took a lot of notes today. I don't know if y'all saw me kind of looking
mm,
down, but I was doing a
mm,
lot of writing over here. So I thank you for sharing your expertise. And I just want to say, just continue to please be that beacon and be that vessel for so many because as we know the sports community, as you've been in the sports community, being a former athlete, now being in the counseling sector, you said it's an underserved community. And so by
Mm-hmm.
being underserved, it's so many former athletes, current athletes, to be athletes that's going to need help, that's going to be need to be,
Yeah.
someone reach out, grab them, or they reach out, and I just hope this episode allows them to see there's no such thing as being cowardly. There's no such thing as looked at upon as, oh, you're weak because you're getting counseling. As
Mm-hmm.
Scott said, being vulnerable, having understanding, having the support, but also having, the people around you too who know when you may be struggling, or when they're struggling, and they're able to lean on each other for the proper communication and for the proper help. So from me to you, I just thank you for that. I thank you for everything you've given me today, the understanding, a better way to approach things, honestly, because I didn't look at it as traumas. I just looked at it as life experiences. They're
Hmm.
traumas, and
Yep.
Yeah.
so, even though they are life experiences, I think because, like you said, it's the negative thing, and all traumas aren't negative, but it all depends on how it's received, and how you
Mm-hmm.
process it, and how you move on forward and toward it. So I really, really appreciate all of your input, everything that you shared today. And like Scott said, this is going to help someone. So I know Scott wants to say a few words too, but I just really appreciate everything you shared with us today, Bree. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah. No, I echo those same sentiments. I mean, I think I'm excited because how many people I'm just, picturing myself as that, that young 15, 16 or 21-year-old kid who were going through these things and didn't know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And, and now I'm just, people can look at, and listen to something like this and maybe get a couple of answers and some relief. But where would, and you do online services as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, if I just want to, if anyone in the obviously in the Spokane, Washington area, how could they find you? And then if they wanted to reach out for online to set up some appointments, how would they do that as well?
Yeah, so my website is hellobree.co. It's hello and then BREE and it .co. There's a contact me page on my website. I'm on Instagram at hellobree.co. Where else? Those are probably the two main. My website and Instagram are good ways to get a hold of me. Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
I do want to say too that the part of in therapy we talk a lot about breaking cycles, and the fact that you guys even had me on here is breaking one of the cycles. It's stopping one of the stigmas of mental health in sports, and so I very much appreciate this time and your willingness to hear me out and hear about the why mental health is so important for athletes.
Definitely. Yeah. No, we definitely broke out of our I know I can't speak for Jackie, but we kind of broke out of I broke out of my comfort zone. So I'll speak for us because we do work as a unit, right? Because it's very comfortable for us to only bring on athletes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is an extremely important topic that people need to be aware of, and athletes need to be aware of that you can get help, and it's going to make you
Mm-hmm.
a better player. It's going to make you a better person long term.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
Awesome.
Dreams podcast stands for discipline, respect, education, accountability, maturation, success. Locker room to reality, making those transitions from the from the locker room to reality, and that can mean in so many different aspects. Like we talked about earlier, just having been structured your whole life, and now you have to kind of structure it yourself, which is not an easy feat. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but no, I really enjoyed this episode, and I just can't wait for people to listen to this. Definitely, definitely. But yeah,
Definitely, 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 definitely second that. Man, it's crazy because, Scott, I'm always coming up with little cliches. And as you were speaking to me, something came to mind. So if you do mind, it does matter. So
hmm
understand that if you do mind, it does matter. And so with all the things that athletes have going on, regular students, regular, you know, individual citizens, like take care of your mind, take care of your body because it does matter. And don't be afraid to reach out to get help. Don't be afraid to tell someone that you're hurting. Don't be afraid to allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to receive the help. So I want to thank Bree again for coming on here and just sharing what you shared because, yeah, I'm telling you, I'm over here. I got a whole page full of notes, you
I
know.
know. I never seen you write this much.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I was like, because it's like,
Yeah.
it's new, you know, it's like a new discovery
Yeah.
almost, you know, because we think of it one way, but hearing it from the professional side, it's like, hey, you know, so that's why I said if you do mind, because it does matter. So I think I just came with a little slogan right there, buddy.
No, yeah. Yeah. Put that on the shirt. Yeah. And hey, you know what? It's funny you said that. And then I'll leave with this as we close. In the famous words of Marshawn Beast Mode Lynch, remember his last press conference, he said, take care of your mental and take care of your chickens.
Take care of your chickens.
Chickens is the money, Bree.
Just the money. Just the money. He mean the money.
First he said, take care of your mental and
And
take
take
care of
care
your
of your
chickens.
chickens. Yep.
Hey, with
Keep
that
me
being
up.
said, another episode of D.R.E.A.M.S podcast. And you guys have an amazing day.
Absolutely. Thank you
All
much.
right.